Hello and a very warm welcome to Sarat Chandra IAS Academy, where your dreams are our mission. This is Yatharth here, and today we'll be talking about ports of India. This appeared as a question in 2023 prelims. The specific question was set A and question number 2. We'll see its connection with the 2009's PYQ and how it was asked with a twist. We'll see the source of the question, the solution of the question, and why it was asked. It's very important for us so that we can prepare for 2024's prelims. And how can we analyze themes? All right, so what's the question? Let's go into that. So the question is the certain ports. Just a second, let me change the pen color here. All right, so first port is a Kamarajar port. And it's being asked that is it well known as the first major port in India registered as a company? So first major port registered as a company. Secondly, it's asked if Mundra port is well known as largest privately owned port in India. Alright, third is Visakhapatnam port and largest container port in India. Now again, UPSC has repeated its new pattern, which has proved to be very dreadsome for the new aspirants, relying on the elimination techniques so far. Alright, so let's see what's this new pattern that match one pair, only one pair is correct, only two pairs are correct, and so on. So in this case, you cannot know until you are very, very certain about whether this A is correct, B is correct, but C is incorrect, or what's the combination. If you don't know the combination, you cannot mark the answer correctly. So that's the issue with these type of questions. You have to be very certain about the answer. Alright, so let's now discuss the question. So what's the subject here? Subject is Indian geography, or you can say economy also, because ports are certainly related to everything nowadays in the globalized world. They are related not only to economy, they are also related with the IR, how we connect with other countries through trade. It also relates to the environment. Many of these ports were made to decongest certain other major ports and act as a subsidiary to them. They were also flagged very recently in the news for creating some kind of environmental pollution. So this is why it's a major theme, ports and their effects on the economy and geography of the country. So the topic is ports of India. So this is a direct topic in the prelims. And based upon this only, we'll solve the questions. The other thing is the subtopic is privatization and importance of ports or ports in trade. Because the only three options, they're talking about the first major port in India registered as a company. Second thing is, the another one is saying privately owned port. And the third option talks about the container port, largest container port. So they specifically talk about the trade sector, export import sector. So these are our base. That means not only the ways, plus ways also, that facilitate our trade in and out of the country. So it's very important to know about this. So the theme here becomes, the theme of the question here becomes the ports, the location of the ports, their nature, and the emerging processes related to them. Okay. So now let's see what are the relations that options share with the question. Just a second. All right. So let's talk about the first Kamarajar port. So it's saying that it is the first port, so it has to be the first. For the option to be correct, that means what do we require for the option to be correctly marked? Either of these combination, if that's incorrect, then the complete option becomes incorrect. So it has to be the first. This is the first requirement. Second, it has to be one of the major ports. And third, it has to be registered as a company. The first major port registered as a company. So there are three possibilities in here, that it can either be, let's say, a minor port, it could not be registered as a company, or maybe it's the second one that's registered as a company. So all three combinations has to be true in order for this to be correct. Now some people will say it's also an elimination technique. If the option is mentioning at least three probabilities and all of them has to be correct for them to be true, then it must be true. All right, but maybe it's a coincidence. All right, because there are two other probabilities here also. That one is the largest and privately owned port. Second, this is talking about Mundra port. And Vishakhapatnam port, it's saying that it is largest container port. That means there can be many container port, but the largest is Vishakhapatnam ports. So let's see if these combinations are true. Now let's talk also about the 2009 PYQ. Just a second. Okay, so in India, the ports are categorized as major and non-major ports. Non-major can be defined as minor or other ports. Which one of the following is a non-major port? All right, so the options were Kochi, Dahej, Paradeep, New Mangalore. You can tell me the answer of this question in the comment section. We'll see the answer further. All right, so let's see, why was this question asked? Why did UPSC think that let's ask this question in 2023 prelims? So one of the news that appeared in the Hindu was Kamarajar port to be able to handle Cape-size vessels in a few years. Let's see what would it mean. Okay, one pattern you must have seen by now is that most of the questions or themes have been repeated from the April section of the newspapers. March-April section, you can say, or even the May section for some questions. So it becomes very, very important to read at least these 3 months newspaper. That will give you quite a lot of edge in the paper. All right, so this was the first theme, that Kamarajar port is to be able to handle Cape-size vessels in a few years. The Cape-size vessels can handle about 1.6 lakh tons of cargo. Right now, cargo of these vessels were being diverted to Krishnapatnam port. All right. The other thing were NGT slams Kamarajar port North Chennai thermal power station for polluting the Ennore Creek. This Kamarajar port was earlier known as the Ennore port only. So this is also a geographical phenomena, Ennore Creek, and you should know where is it. Okay, police seizes 75 kg heroin near Mundra port. So Mundra port has been much in news because of these seizing in the last year, especially after the Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan. Just a second. Because the drug trade is flourishing around the coast of Gujarat. Like whenever, just a second. So whenever there is a drug trade from the Arabian Sea, it mostly lands here in the Gujarat through Kandla and the Mundra ports. So it has been also in the news. Okay, other thing is the hard to resist lure of ports. So this was talking about Vishakhapatnam port, and we have seen Vishakhapatnam twice, this port twice in the news because of the sedimentation, and it has become very hard for the ships to land there now. All right, okay. So let's see what is the reality of this question. That was it asked because it was actually in the theme? Then the answer is no. It was not much in the theme in the year 2022 or 23. What's the reality of the question? Why was it asked? It's because it's quite in the syllabus. And there has been a PYQ over it as well. So in the 2009, there was a PYQ with this in the same ports, defining what are major and minor ports in India. So this now becomes a theme here, that you must be knowing which are the major and minor ports in India. And if you know about them, especially about the major ports, because they are only and only 13 in number, you must be knowing a lot about them. You should be knowing a lot about them. We are talking about the UPSC where we cannot predict everything. UPSC also predicts what a student must be knowing. And if it's only giving us 13 topics to be exact on the name of major ports, then we are supposed to know most of the things about at least these 13 ports. So let's see which of these are 13 ports, the major ports. So one is this Kandla. Just a second. So this Kandla port is in Gujarat and located close to it the Mundra port. The another major port is Mumbai port. It's located in West Mumbai, Maharashtra. Other is JNPT, that is Jawaharlal Nehru Port, Maharashtra and South Mumbai. It's also the largest container port. One is Mormugao port, it's in Goa. Then New Mangalore port, it's also a major port. It's an artificial port. It's in Mangaluru, Karnataka. Then there is Kochi port in Kerala. There is Tuticorin port in Tamil Nadu, Tuticorin. Then there is Chennai port in Tamil Nadu. There is Ennore port or Kamarajar port. It's also a major port and it's located next to the Ennore Creek. That's why it has been named as Ennore port previously. Now it's known as Kamarajar port. Then there is Vishakhapatnam port, Paradip port, and Kolkata and Haldia port. So it's in Kolkata. The Paradip port is in Odisha. So these are the 13 major ports of India. Alright, let us see some about them, some more information about them. So there are 13 major ports and 205 non-major ports in the country. Deen Dayal Port Trust or Kandla, it's in Gujarat. Mumbai Port Trust, that is in Maharashtra. We saw JNPT is in Maharashtra. It's very important one. It's the largest container port. Of India. It also eliminates the third of our statement that the Vishakhapatnam port is largest. So this marks it wrong. One is Mormugao Port Trust, it's in Goa, please remember. Then Kamarajar Port, it's in Tamil Nadu. Alright. It's located on the very northern shore of Tamil Nadu, please remember. Just a second. So it's located rather here on the very northern shore of Tamil Nadu and right below the Andhra Pradesh. Okay. Other is Chennai Port Trust, Tamil Nadu. VO Chidambaram Port Trust in Tamil Nadu. New Mangalore Port Trust, Karnataka. Cochin, Kerala. Vishakhapatnam, Andhra Pradesh. Paradip in Odisha. Kolkata in West Bengal. And Haldia in West Bengal. Please also remember that which of these states have multiple, that means n is more than 1, have single, n is more than 1, and have 0 ports. Alright, so it becomes very easy for you, of course, because only those states which share a coastline will have ports. So Rajasthan does not have any port. Yeah. So you can see with these and classify it as such. So it can also appear as a question. So please remember at least everything about the major ports. This is a common theme. This is an asked theme, and it can be asked. So let's see specifically about the Kamarajar port. It's located here on the northern shore of the Tamil Nadu. And on the southern side of the Andhra Pradesh. I am making you remember the location so as you have a geographical or pictorial memory. Otherwise, as data, we cannot remember everything that's asked in UPSC. And becomes very hard once we go to the ports of the world, let's say the major ports of the world. Alright. So Kamarajar Port, erstwhile known as Ennore Port, is the 12th major port of India. It's located on the Coromandel coast, about 24 km north of Chennai. It is also only corporatized major port in India. So two things have correct. And it's registered as a company. Now, because it's also the first. So this marks our first statement correct. The port was declared as a major port under the Indian Ports Act 1908 in March 1999. Chennai Port Trust has acquired more than or around 67 stake of center in the Kamarajar Port Limited on 27 March 2020. The remaining 23% was already held by the Chennai Port Trust. So it's 100% now. envisaged being a satellite port to decongest and improve the environmental quality as the bustling Chennai port. So Chennai port is getting much of the traffic. It's like built as a sub port to it. One more thing, it acts as a landlord port. So what is this concept? This can also come directly in the UPSC next year possibly. So please remember this concept. The landlord port concept is characterized by its mixed public-private orientation. One of the questions very similarly come in 2023 was small farmer, large field. So what is this concept? So this can also come directly that what is the landlord port concept? So the port authority acts as a regulatory body and as landlord, while port operations, cargo handling are carried out by private companies. All right. Okay, let's see about the Mundra port. Where is it located? So it's located in the Gujarat. Okay, near the Kandla port. But please remember, it is in west to Kandla port. This can also be directly asked. Now, you may remember that Gujarat has both the ports. You may also remember they are located towards the Gulf of Kutch. But you should also remember that which is in which direction related to both. It can also be asked, let's say, if a ship from Arabian Sea comes towards the Gulf of Kutch and it wants to land to the first port it faces. So where will it land? All right, so your answer should be Mundra port, not the Kandla port. UPSC can ask everything. So don't remain in that misunderstanding. All right. So it's on the northern side, this side, and in the western end. And there is also Kandla port. This is a major port, Kandla port. Okay. So Mundra port is not a major port. So Mundra port is the largest private port of India, but it is not a major port. Please remember. But our objective or the option is correct, second option, because it is the largest private port in India. The port of Mundra is located on the north shores of Gulf of Kutch near Mundra, Kutch district in the state of Gujarat. So please remember the northern shore and the western end. Mundra is a major hub for containers and bulk cargo. It is run by Adani Ports and SEZ Limited and began operations in 2001. Mundra Airport is undergoing major developments to convert it into an international airport for air cargo. Let us now talk about the Visakhapatnam port. So this is the Visakhapatnam port. Recently, it has been much into news because of the environmental concerns that have been caused by its presence, plus the sedimentation. So you can read about it. Ships has been the artificial wall. So you can read about this also. It's also a geographical phenomena. So ship can land here peacefully without facing much of the waters. All right. So these are harbors that were created. This is also a harbor that was created. So from this, ports can land, ships can land here. These are the western and northern arms of this Visakhapatnam port. So it's located in Andhra Pradesh. All right. So this port is a natural harbor and the second largest port in terms of cargo volume handled. The port is approximately halfway between the ports of Chennai and Kolkata. India's deepest port handles. So please remember it's India's deepest port. This is the note that you should make along with this when you talk about this port. So it's India's deepest port, but not India's largest container port. That is the JNPT, Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust. So it handles the shipment of iron ore to Japan. These are facilities for building and repairing ships as well. All right, iron ore, coal, alumina, and oil are traded. So these are also related to the mineral resources of India. So let's now come to the last option. Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust, that is Nhava Sheva JNPT, is the largest container port of India and one of the most essential subcontinent harbor on the western coast. It was developed as a satellite port to relieve the pressure at the Mumbai port. So sometimes what happens in the question we are seeing, that say we are talking about Visakhapatnam port being the largest container port. So it doesn't help us if we know or don't know. that the Visakhapatnam port is or not the largest container port. What helps us is that we must know that JNPT is the largest container port. Alright, so this information is vital for us. This is the naturally deepest port of India. So please make these notes so that you can be very, very sure when some options come in the next time. I hope you have marked this question correct, but if you haven't, then be sure of the next time. Let's again revise very quickly all the ports. This is Kandla port, Mundra port, Porbandar. These are the, let's say, major plus non-major ports, but some important ports which you should know about. Porbandar port here, Varabal, Bhavnagar, Bharuch, Surat, Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust, Ratnagiri Port, Panji, Mormugao, Mangaluru, Kochi, Alappuzha, Tuticorin or Tuticorin, Nagatippanam, Chennai, Ennore, Karaputli, Krishnapatnam. This is a port we talked about, Krishnapatnam port, because from the Ennore port they are diverted to the Krishnapatnam port. Machilipatnam, Kakinda, Visakhapatnam, Paradip, Haldia. There are many, many ports which you should know about geographically, not only the major ports, but especially you must know about the major ports. But these are also the intermediate support ports. Alright, so what is the solution of the question here? That the option 1 is correct. Option 2 is also correct. But option 3 is incorrect. Visakhapatnam port is not the largest container port. Mundra port, yes, largest privately owned port. And this is also the first privately owned, registered as a company. Alright. So that was the solution of the question. I hope you learned a lot from this lecture. I hope you also have learned already what you need to read. So please read about the major ports, important ports. You can skip the minor ports except for let's say geographical location. Also, please mark the major ports on the map and make at least 4 to 5 line notes about all the ports, especially about what is their very special geographical features. And see them in the light of not only geography but also in economy and environment. Alright, so this was today's lecture. I hope you learned a lot. This is Yatharth here signing off. Thank you very much and have a very good day. Keep studying and be bright.